நாராயணனே நமக்கே பறை தருவான், பாரோர் புகழப் படிந்தேலோர் எம்பாவாய். Who is Andal and what is Thiruppavai? Come walk with me, experience Krishna Anubhavam with me. Thus heralded Andal, a devotee of Mahavishnu and a poet par excellence. 4,000 poems called the Nalayira Divya Prabandham were composed by Alvars in praise of Lord Narayana and his various forms. Among the 12 Alvars, Andal stands alone as the only woman saint poet. Her timeless works, Thiruppavai and Nachiyar Tirumozhi, are part of the sacred Nalayira Divya Prabandham. Each poem in the Nalayiram is called a Pasuram. Vishnu Chittar, also revered as Periyalvar, lived in Srivilliputtur and found a baby girl in a Tulasi Vanam. He named her Godai, gift of the earth. Periyalvar would prepare garlands for the Perumal, Lord Vatapatrashai, and this was his Kainkaryam or service to the Lord. Godai grew up watching her father's devotion, and that was the foundation for her developing a deep bhakti. One day, Vishnu Chittar notices Godai wearing the garland meant for the deity. When confronted, little Godai says she wore it because she is the bride of Lord Vishnu. Vishnu Chittar admonishes her and makes a new garland for the Lord. However, he and the butler in the temple hear Lord Vishnu's voice in the temple that says, I will only accept the garland worn by Godai. And soon after that, Godai is referred to as Sudi Kudutha Sudarkodi, one who wore the garland before offering it to the Lord. She is also called Andal, the one who ruled the Lord's heart. Andal grew up listening to stories of Krishna from Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, also known as Bhagavata Purana, is a detailed account of Lord Krishna and his avatars and is a central text in Vaishnavism. She is drawn to the description of Katyayini Vritam, where young marriageable girls of Gokulam worshipped Katyayini and observed the Vritam or vow during the entire month of Margazhi, the first month of the winter season, to get Lord Krishna as their husband. Deeply inspired by this Katyayini Vritam, Andal decides to create her version called the Pavai Nombu, a form of spiritual discipline involving self-denial and devotion in order to get closer to experiencing Krishna Anubhavam. Andal imagines herself as a gopi, a cowherd girl, deeply devoted to Lord Krishna. She poetically transforms Srivilliputtur into Gokulam, Krishna's birthplace, and the Vatapatrashai temple into Krishna's father Nandagopa's palace. She composes the Thiruppavai to convey the essence of Pavai Nombu and encourages her friends to join her in observing the vow in order to reach the Lord. Taniyan are verses of praise of an Alvar which also contain biographical notes of the said Alvar. Taniyans written about Andal help us to understand who Andal was. Uyya Kondar wrote this Taniyan as a tribute to Andal, and this is usually chanted before we chant Thiruppavai. Annavayar Puduvai Andal Arangarkku Pannu Thiruppavai Palpadiyam Innisayal Paadi Koduttal Narpamaalai Poomaalai Sudi Koduttalai Sollu. And what this means is, Andal from Puduvai or Srivilliputtur sang this poetic garland of many verses called the Thiruppavai. Let us extol the glory of Andal, she who wore the flower garland before it was offered to the Lord. And he goes further to say, சூடிக் கொடுத்த சுடற்கொடியே தொல்பாவை பாடி அருள வல்ல பல்வளையாய் நாடினீ வேங்கடவர்க்கென்னை விதியென்ற இம்மாற்றம் நாங்கடவா வண்ணமே நல்கு. O you, the one who gave flower garlands to the Lord after wearing them yourself, you gave us Thiruppavai. Your prayers took you to Lord Venkateshwara. Show us the path and help us experience divinity in the same way. On completion of Thiruppavai chanting, we usually chant Sri Vedapiran Bhattar's composition, the Vazhi Tirunamam. பாதகங்கள் தீர்க்கும் பரமனடி காட்டும் வேதமனைத்துக்கும் வித்தாகும் கோதைத்தமிழ் ஐயைந்தும் ஐந்தும் அறியாத மானிடரை வையம் சுமப்பதும் வம்பு. Andal's Thiruppavai has the power to cleanse us of our sins and help us reach the Lord's feet. Thiruppavai contains the essence of all Vedas. Those who are ignorant of the 30 verses of Thiruppavai are indeed a burden to the world they live in. One way to look at these verses is, those who learn and chant Thiruppavai understand and attain the purpose of human life, which is to experience God's presence. And therefore, those who don't know Thiruppavai lose this direction and life seems a burden to them and to those around them. Thaniyans and Vazhi Tirunamam extol the qualities of Andal, and if we were to take her life as a role model, we will possibly get closer to experiencing Krishnanubhavam just the way she did. Andal's Thiruppavai is part of the Nalayira Divya Prabandham and consists of 30 Pasurams. Why are these poems called Pasurams? A Pasuram is a devotional song particularly associated with the Alvars, the early Vaishnava saints of Tamil Nadu. Learned Vaishnava scholars have given the meaning of the word Pasuram by this analogy. When a cow is separated from its calf, it experiences a deep longing. This longing naturally leads to the production of milk. Similarly, when the Alvars felt a deep longing for the divine, it found an expression in these beautiful songs called Pasurams. How does one experience Andal and how does one appreciate her poetry? One could visualize the scenes. In one of the Pasurams, Andal says, வாசனரும் குழல் ஆய்ச்சியர் மத்தினால் ஓசைப்படுத்த தயிரரவம் கேட்டிலையோ. She describes the sound of churning the milk and yogurt to get butter. This sound coming from every home in the morning. The description is so vivid that it can enable us to engage our senses to enhance the visualization and bring Andal's world closer to us. Connect with the emotions and empathize with the characters and get carried away by the emotional intensity of Andal's words. This can also evoke strong feelings of bhakti within you. Recognize the various literary devices used by Andal, such as metaphors, similes, imagery, and symbolism. Connect with the often repeated themes such as love, devotion, longing, and surrender. And listen to the musical adaptations of Thiruppavai. Engage in interactive community activities like attending a goshti or group chanting of Andal's Thiruppavai. Listen to the various interpretations and commentaries on Thiruppavai, and that would deepen the understanding and appreciation. To delve into the historical and cultural context, familiarize yourself with the historical period in which Andal lived to understand the socio-political and cultural landscape of Tamil Nadu. A study of the history and development of Vaishnavism provides context for the religious and philosophical references in her poetry. Learning about or visiting the temples and shrines mentioned in Andal's poetry is yet another way. Visit Srivilliputturu, a visit that will bring all your devotion to fruition because you will find yourself in front of the Lord that she worshipped. Immerse yourself in the language. Knowledge of even basic Tamil helps to appreciate the beauty and nuances and enhances the experience. Finally, link words in the Pasuram with what we see around us. For instance, when we see a board in a temple that says, "These flowers are meant only for God," let the mind dwell on the relevant Pasuram where Andal says, "Mayyittezhudom malarittu naam mudiyom." We will not adorn our hair with flowers and focus on external beauty. These kind of linkages help us to experience Andal and her Thiruppavai at a deeply personal level. Andal's heart was attuned to the rhythms of nature. She was intimately acquainted with the flora and fauna surrounding her. She was a great environmentalist, and her Pasurams convey the deep connection between the forces of nature and human existence. The innocence and simplicity in Andal's Pasurams are unparalleled. She views Krishna as a friend and calls him by different names. At the end of Thiruppavai, she says, "We are overwhelmed by our love for you and have called you names. Do forgive us, for we are very rustic." Over time, Andal becomes steadfast in her decision to marry only Lord Ranganatha, and her father even asks a soothsayer about Andal's future. Assured by everyone, including the soothsayer, Andal is escorted to Srirangam as the bride of Lord Ranganatha, and she enters into the sanctum sanctorum to finally merge with her Lord. Her father Periyalvar writes this in his Tirumozhi. "Urumagal tannai udayen, ulagam nirainda pugaral tirumagal pola valarthen, senganmal thaan kondu ponan. The one daughter I had, I brought her up like Mahalakshmi herself, and the pure-eyed Lord took her and went away." Periyalvar, who was always immersed in Kainkaryam to his Lord, was in a way happy that his daughter marries the Lord. And yet, the father in him misses the daughter who is not with him anymore. Such was the life of Alvars. They experienced all the pains and travails associated with the human birth, and yet the connection with their Sriman Narayana was always present. Andal's Thiruppavai offers plenty of options to immerse oneself in her state of divinity, intense love for the Lord, and spiritual ecstasy. Let us take a deep dive into Thiruppavai and experience Andal's world while staying focused on our efforts to experience Krishnanubhavam. Join me as we experience Andal and her Thiruppavai in the coming days. Andal Tiruvadigalé Sharanam.